Welcome back to Wild Wine Life. Today is very exciting. We have winemaker, winery owner, just all around good guy and entrepreneur, Barry Waitte from Tamber Bey Winery on the show with us. Welcome to Wild Wine Life, Barry.
Oh, my pleasure to be here. Nice to see you again.
Your resume could be an entire segment by itself, so I'll try and make this fast. But you grew up in San Francisco. You started going to Napa back in '59 before it was really known as the big wine area. You played catcher in minor league ball for the Padres, which we discussed, even with Ozzie Smith for all the Cardinal fans out there. You worked for Apple and later management during the Steve Jobs era. You started several companies. You ran AOL towards the end of your tech career. You hate big companies. You moved to Napa from Silicon Valley to Napa back in '99, starting Tamber Bey in 2000. You always are educating yourself. Your college degrees from Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo. You have your MBA from UC Berkeley and a viticultural degree in enology from UC Davis. Your sports besides baseball include Class 5 rapids, mountain climbing, endurance horse racing, which you've won a World Cup 2 times, the Pan Am gold winner, and you also have taken up polo and you love to fly fish. I describe you as a slight adrenaline chaser, to say the least.
There's the common thread. That is very true. I wake up every morning thinking I've got to do a triathlon today just to get my gels, and then I coordinate that with my wife. So I kind of figured out, hey, just for some clarification, there was a little overbounds on some of those things. I didn't run AOL. I was a senior manager there, but I didn't run it. So just in case we have some old fans out there of AOL, they're going to say, wait a minute, that doesn't sound right. So no, not at all. Actually, I got to AOL through an acquisition of a company that I worked for back in, I think it was 1995. But that's how I got to AOL. And there is something else you said in there. There was a little bit of an exaggeration. I'll let it fly because I can't remember what it was, but it was mostly true. Leave it at that.
A little puffing never hurts. Tamber Bey is a wonderful family-owned, family-run winery. Your lovely wife, Jennifer, is running all things equestrian and a director of marketing who you married back on Valentine's Day of 2012.
Man, you did your research.
Your daughter, Kendra, is your national sales manager. And you're now a grandfather, Sophia Elizabeth, your granddaughter, born on July 15th of this year.
Yep. Treasure of my life.
So I'm going to start off with something really, it's either going to go wonderful from here or fail miserable.
We're going to go south.
Or it's going to go south. They always say never start with those questions, but I figure since I'm with an adrenaline chaser, I'm going to go there. I'm willing to bet you've already thought about this over sipping some wonderful Tamber Bey wine, that it's also the only working horse ranch winery in Napa. But I'm wondering, you're trying to decide, are you going to have Sophia start on a horse or on a pony, and who's going to teach her how to ride?
Wow. Yeah, who's going to teach her how to ride? Well, that would clearly be me. It could be my wife, and I'll just qualify as not my daughter's mother, but they're best of friends. But I can't wait to get her just nuzzled up to one of our ponies and just watch an interaction. There's something about horses, and they're affectionate to people that don't threaten them. Right? Because horses are animals of flight. So everybody's trying to eat them or kill them or do something stupid to them. So they've, over thousands of years, have developed this flight mechanism. But when they find, and it's big time with children, people with disabilities is real big, where they just completely change their behavior. And so I have yet to bring Sophie and present her to a couple of my horses. And I know who's going to get it first. It's a horse called Esme. She's one of my polo horses. She's the kindest, gentlest thing out there until you put a saddle on her and get out on the polo field. And she just goes. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that day. My daughter never got the horse gene, as I call it. She did horses for a while, but I think in high school, boys took over. And so she never, she knows how to ride, but she doesn't do it much anymore. So anyway, nice question. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm going to get her a pair of cowboy boots here for her little, now, what is it, 9-week, 10-week-old feet. She's gorgeous.
My daughter likes horses, but she hasn't asked me for a pony or a horse yet. So.
Yeah, well, I'm good. I try to discourage parents from getting a horse, their kids into horses. It could be a long trek.
Yeah, I used to take care of my sisters, and I remember.
Okay, so yeah,
Oh yeah, you've been going to Napa since the 50s, since 1959, I believe. Who are some of the big Napa names you got to meet before you moved to Napa Valley?
Yeah, let me drop in on just why I got up here. I was almost an infant at the time, but my parents were from Boston, Massachusetts. And in their heyday of growing up, and even in their life, Northeasterners, and I'm sure elsewhere in the country, people go on vacations in August. And so my dad was with the Air Force, and his last hop was here at Travis Air Force Base. And instead of going home to Boston, he called up home. And Mom was 4 months pregnant with me and said, "We're staying." And so 2 years into that, they started to do, where we're going to go in August. And they started asking around. And I got to be honest with you, people in California don't have an August thing. We just go on vacation when we go. And so anyway, they chose St. Helena, California for a week. That week turned to 2 weeks within a year, and then it turned into a month every year until I graduated from high school. So that's why I came up here. They did not do it for wine, though my dad certainly enjoyed wines, my mom a little bit. It wasn't for wine. It was just because what I now found out is because Napa is still an agricultural community. And largely, in fact, because Napa is the first agricultural preserve in the country, as voted on in the early 70s. But they had that mentality even in the 60s and voted on it. So there we go. It still looks like an agricultural community. And that's what they enjoyed, just 50 miles away from San Francisco. And so that was my adaptation to Napa. Now, I didn't get to meet that many people at that time. I'm a kid. I'm a high school kid. No one cares about high school kids. But I will tell you this. I do remember that air conditioning was not big back then. And so my dad figured out there's air conditioning in 3 places. A grocery store, a movie theater, and the wineries. And so I remember day after day, we would go to Charles Krug and just hang out. And I'd run around the barrel rooms. This is when you were able to do that because they just had a card table or something pretty minimal. And that, which we all know, if you've been to a barrel room, that scent that you get when you walk into a barrel room still resonates today. And I could walk into mine, which is literally, 100 feet away from my window right here, and still get that feeling that resonated back to me when I was just a child. So I really enjoyed that. But my parents, rented homes in downtown St. Helena. In those days, we were all as kids free to roam the streets and do stuff. So that's what I did. But when I went away to college, that kind of ended that vacation trip to St. Helena. But it obviously left a lasting impression in my mind. For I ended up back here many years later.
You said in another interview in college, your senior year was when you fell in love with wine. And you mentioned a 1974 Beulah Vineyard George de la Tour.
Yes. This bottle right here. If we can do it with that, is it not? This is empty, of course. And how that came about is I was playing D1 ball, and as a catcher, as you noted, And I also worked part-time at a liquor store called Cork and Bottle. These are liquor stores that are by every single, not by namesake, but there's always a bunch of liquor stores around at college. And one day I walked in. We had about 2 months left of school, and I walked in with a Western Union telegram, because that's how we communicated back then. And it was my draft notice from the San Diego Padres. And I said, I got some good news and bad news. So the good news is this, which is fantastic. That's great. The bad news is my last day is going to be in 2 weeks, because I've got to head off to camp. And the owner was a pretty cool guy. He just said, look, I got to pull over here. And so he goes out, he's going to bring a bottle of something. And what I remember is he brought a bottle that had a cork in it. And, I'm a college student. I'm drinking like every other college student, right? We didn't care. And so he opened it, and I just went, woof, what is this? And as he showed me where that bottle was, where I knew it was, because I've restacked it and so forth. But he said, now I'm looking at the labels next to it. Charles Krug, Robert Mondavi, Engelnook, blah, blah, blah. They're all like that. Yeah. Boom. So, I'm now a first generation winemaker. I was not born into this at all, but I think the more times than not that I talk to first generation wine people, and, you can say this about a lot of people in a lot of industries, that they have an epiphany moment to that. It could be sailing. It could be whatever you do. Those kind of things. Could be stamp collecting. I don't know. But we all have these epiphany moments that say, I really like this. And that really liked part just kept growing. And so through my 20s and 30s, as my dad said, I became a consumer wine professional. And it wasn't for the volume. It was, I tried to learn everything I could. So yeah, I just remembered one of the other notions. You said I have a number of degrees, which I do, but I don't have a formal degree from UC Davis. So I did take a number of classes. And look, when I did that, I was in my late 30s. And just because of my career time, I had some spare time, so to speak. So I signed up for a lot of classes, literally more around the botany and the growing than the winemaking. Because when I first thought I would get in this business, and it happened, I was a grower, and I thought that would be a great way to enter into the business, and I could learn the rest if I wanted to or not. I could just be a grower. So it took about a year and a half of understanding how carbohydrates work through the cardiovascular system of a plant, and diseases and rootstocks and clones and terroir, as the French call it, everything about the terroir of a plant. And it totally invaluable. And why I did that, actually, now you go into my very, very short, brief baseball career to winemaking. I did high tech for a while, but I'm not a techie. I'm not a techie by any means. I graduated with a finance and economics degree, and also I did some accounting classes and got pretty proficient in that, but I didn't do any of those things. I was so enamored back in 1979 with computers, I decided to get into computers. Now, these computers were the size of my office as I look around. I mean, they were big machines. And but what I really liked about them, and I was intrigued, was how these machines could solve problems. Now, these are pretty rudimentary problems compared to today, but still they did, and I was enamored with it. So I immediately got a job with a pretty good-sized computer company. And that just... but I'm not a techie. So what I found is if I learned the foundation of technology, starting with zeros and ones and how they go down a cable, and then they're captured, and then there's things that happen to them that are translated like a language. I needed to know that. And that's all I needed to know, so where I can have that conversation. So, and then understanding what TCP/IP meant, and how computers worked, allowed me to have a proficiency and basically a dialogue with people about computers, where I actually, I'm going to suggest I didn't know that much. Like I said, I wasn't a programmer, but I could get into that dialogue. And therefore, as sometimes we are with technology and other things, I was not intimidated by that, because I just had a base understanding of how these things work. And I figured if I'm in a conversation, I could figure out the dialogue that could surface it. So I wanted to do that in winemaking. And the part not that I felt it would be the easiest, actually it's the hardest, is learning botany and plants and plant structure and how things operate there. And so that was really helpful on that side. But I didn't concentrate at all in making wine, other than, reading Wine Spectators and talking to winemakers, when I'd come to Napa to visit, and so forth. And, if I kind of reverse engineer that, the one thing I so enjoy about this business, other than working with my wine team, is meeting guests that are curious. They're curious about how wine is made. And it allows me to use that background of how I succeeded in technology here to actually transfer something that's very complex. I mean, winemaking is very complex. It's even more complex, in my opinion, than technology, because technology is mostly engineering, where there's a very large sliver of art that goes into winemaking, and then you combine the two, and the tension between the two is what makes absolutely fantastic wines. Knowing when to stop, when not to stop, temperature, fermentations, up and down the line. But what I learned in tech is how to take that very complex X's and O's and translate it into things that customers can understand. And by the way, customers have a need, and translating that back to the engineers. My first couple jobs in high tech were all in the product marketing area. And basically what that is, like in a lot of businesses, if you're the in-betweener between the people that make it and the people that buy it, and you're the translator, which also has some other responsibilities of developing marketing plans and pricing and all that stuff, which is very fun. So quite frankly, I am nothing more than a product marketing manager for Tamber Bey at its onset, and the strategic leader of what we make and how we make. But the other thing I learned in management when I got into that was, boy, hire people smarter than you and give them the freedom to run. And that is the esprit de corps here at Tamber Bey.
Were you?
Boy, that was a long diatribe. Sorry about that.
No. This is not even on my written question, but were you behind the 1984 Super Bowl commercial, or involved with that with the Big Brother?
Yeah. Well, what a great commercial, and it's amazing that we're still talking about it. It's still one of the best commercials ever. It was so groundbreaking. I was not part of that at all. That individual. I know the people that were. I know a lot about it, how it was made, and they made it in London, and they hired Ridley Scott, who had only done movies. He's the first movie director to kind of back up and do a commercial. But I tell you, there's footage out there. I don't know who owns it now, but where you could see literally almost a half hour of this scenario being played out. And of course, they cut it down to a minute. And then there's some stuff that was used from a marketing perspective that was 2 or 3 minutes onto it. But I wasn't part of that. Again, back to product marketing. For a large part, I was working in markets, and I vacillated. We should bring it up that I worked for AOL for about 14 years. Sorry, Apple. AOL later. I worked at Apple, and I was able to see through the introduction of the Macintosh, which was very exciting. It is actually the religion of Apple really came about then, and where we go from a really cool job to we can change the world with this. And I didn't even today, I don't understand the impact that we had back then because I was so young and very naive. But there are moments like watching that commercial. There are moments of dealing with Steve. I'll say the majority of them were positive, but there were a couple that weren't, because we know that Steve back then was a little difficult. But I started in the year 2000. Sorry, no, back up. Yeah, sorry, 1980 is when I started, and then he left Apple, not on his own flourishing, but in 1985, and I stayed till 1994, and then went off and did some other stuff in tech. So there you go.
We will be right back with more wild wine life and Barry Waitte from Tamber Bay.